There's always unpredictability embedded in social media. It wouldn't work if you knew what was coming.
I guess that's why so many people just keep tweeting and posting, because it's kind of like every post comes with a bunch of likes and you're going, you might go viral.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, think of the experience of using, we'll take Twitter, now called X, apparently. So let's say you have come up with a little tweet that you think is hilarious. It's of the moment, right? So you put it up and then you wait, right? The reels are spinning. Then you open the app back up and you're like, did people like it? Did they retweet it? And you don't know what could have happened. It could be so clever that like, oh my God, so many people have retweeted this. And this feels amazing if this happens. But it could have fallen flat. And then you're like, now I actually look like an idiot because I put out a joke and no one thinks it's funny. It's like telling a joke in front of a room and people just stare at you, right? So there's this range of unpredictable outcomes that could happen. Same with scrolling though, in a way. I mean, you just scroll and scroll and scroll and you're kind of searching for that video that's going to provide you with a hit of something, right? It could be, oh, here's some sort of crazy fight that happened outside of a bar after a Philadelphia Eagles game, because the fights are always in Philadelphia in the US. Or it could be this video, this amazing heartwarming dog video, and that makes me smile. Or it could be some hilarious video that you're just laughing your butt off, and so you're kind of sucked into that, waiting for the next win, right? You're scrolling, and then that's the one that got me.
How do we break out of this? Because I want to take back control.
Yeah, well, we all do. Well, first I will say that when people fall into this loop, I like to say that you're not a bad person, because this is very much part of the human brain. People will be hard on themselves because their screen time is so high and like, why do I keep doing this thing? So you're not a bad person. It's your ancient brain working against you. It's not your fault, but it is your problem. You still have to figure out, how am I going to get out of this? The first step to me is just being aware of it in the first place. So once you become aware of behavior and observe a behavior, it tends to change. That's called the Hawthorne effect. And then the second part is that you can remove or change any of the three parts of that loop of the scarcity loop that I mentioned. So you can remove or change the opportunity, you can remove or change the unpredictable rewards, or you can remove or change the quick repeatability. You can slow things down.
Everyone listening to this will want to make better long-term decisions. How do we win that battle, which is seemingly with ourselves?
It is in a way with ourselves, but it's also, I think, in a way with this sort of ancient hardware that we have. So I'll answer this way, and it might provide some insight, and we can kind of go from there. So in this book, Scarcity Brain, there's this underlying question I have that is, everyone knows that everything's fine in moderation. And yet we all suck at moderation in some way or another in our life, right? We all have a thing that we're not great at moderating, let's say. So I live in Las Vegas and I have this underlying question, and Las Vegas is a fascinating town. And so I want to know why slot machines work. Why are they so good at grabbing attention? Now, long story short is this leads me to this place on the edge of town in Las Vegas. And it's a brand new, fully working, cutting edge casino, but it's used entirely for research on human behavior. So it's a collaboration with the gambling industry and a bunch of different tech companies. So you go into this place, and I went in there, and it's a real casino. There's hotel rooms, there's like restaurants, there's a coffee bar. There's all these different things that a casino would have, like the slot machines, like the poker tables, like the sports book, like insert whatever. And while I'm there, I end up talking to a researcher who designs slot machines. And slot machines work on what I call the scarcity loop. It is a 3-part behavior loop, and its 3 parts are 1, opportunity, 2, unpredictable rewards, and 3, quick repeatability. So 1, opportunity. You have an opportunity to get something of value that's going to enhance your life. In the case of a slot machine, it's money, right? 2, unpredictable rewards. You'll get that thing of value at some point, but you don't know when, and you don't know how valuable it's going to be. So with slot machines, it's like you play, you could lose your money, you could win a couple dollars, you could win hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's crazy. And then 3, quick repeatability. You can immediately repeat the behavior. Now, the important part is that, and why I'm talking about this, is because that 3-part behavior loop. It is the most powerful behavior loop at getting people to repeat behaviors and get sucked in. It's like the serial killer of moderation, okay? And it's now in all sorts of other tech and institutions. So for example, it's what makes social media work. It's what makes dating apps so compelling. It's being put in financial apps like Robinhood. It's being leveraged by different gig work companies, right? It explains the rise of sports betting. It's embedded in a lot of these behaviors that we can't seem to moderate. So when I look at the things that people aren't good at moderating, whether it's, I check email way too much, or I check my stocks way too much, and this drives me nuts. It's usually behavior that falls into that scarcity loop. And so the book unpacks, what it is, where it came from, why we get hooked on it in the first place, and I can explain that.
Please.
And then where it pops up in modern life. You want to know where it came from?
Yeah.
Okay, so I had the same question. So I talked to the slot guy, and now I'm like, okay, I get that gambling and slot machines are so compelling. I get that this thing is in a lot of different places, but why? Why in the first place? He just looks at me and goes, I don't know. Like, he just makes money off it. He doesn't care. So I end up calling a guy who's a psychologist at the University of Kentucky. And this guy is an old school behavioral psychologist. Like, he got his PhD in 1968, and he's been doing research ever since. And he explained that it likely evolved to help us find food in the past. So if you think of humans in the past, you basically had to find food every day or else you're going to die. Mm. But you don't know where the food is, and you don't know how much you're going to find. So you go to point A, no food. Point B, no food. Point C, ding, 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 jackpot. You find this massive elk that you end up killing, and it feeds you for weeks. All right, so that is the exact same architecture as a slot machine. You play the game, you don't get anything. You play the game, you don't get anything. You play the game, oh, it's right there. Amazing. And you couldn't predict any of that, right? And you've got to repeat that behavior every day for life. So we seem to be inherently attracted to behaviors that fall into that loop, because if we weren't in the past, we wouldn't have had as much incentive to continue searching for food and in turn survive. So we still have that sort of ancient hardware.
And are we the only ones, or is the rest of the animal kingdom wired in such a way? Because one would assume they would be.
Yeah, they are. So the guy that I spoke to at the University of Kentucky, he does research on pigeons, and pigeons will play a gambling game that gets them less overall resources compared to a predictable game that gets them more food. So he can basically turn pigeons into these sort of degenerate gamblers. And you see it in rats, you see it in other primates. Yeah.
So when the rewards are unpredictable for a pigeon, they engage in the behavior more.
Yep.
Which would, again, matches up with your theory that whenever there's unpredictable rewards associated with an action, we are more engaged because it falls into that prehistoric hardware.
Exactly. Think about starting a car. Okay, you start your car. It turns on every time. That's not that exciting, right? Like, it's not going to capture your attention. Let's say you turn it on and it doesn't turn over. So you try it again, it doesn't turn over. You try it again, it doesn't turn over. What are you going to do? You're just going to be like, okay, well, my car's not starting. I'm going to fix it. Now, what happens if you go to start your car and it doesn't turn over, but it kind of putters? It goes like it's going to turn on, and then it stops. And then you do it again, and then it doesn't do that. And so you're like, okay, well, what's going on? So you do it again. It starts to sound like it's going to come on. It's like, but then it doesn't. You're going to sit there messing with that so long as that car is giving you signs of life, right? There's this unpredictability embedded into it. And that'll capture attention of, any animal pretty much.
And I mean, that's what, when I was thinking about, I think it's called like near miss theory or something that you talk about in your book. That's kind of what that is. When you see, you're on like a slot machine and you see like the cherry go, you nearly got it. Mm-hmm. You didn't quite get it, but is that called is it near miss theory or something?
Yeah, near miss. So near misses are a term from the casino industry. And in slot machines, let's say you have 5 reels and, you need these bars to line up, these gold bars or whatever. We'll use cherries. That's a better example. You got 4 cherries lined up, and if this 5th cherry hits, you're going to win a bunch of money. Now, what will usually happen in slot machines is that 5th wheel, they will be programmed to have that thing roll longer and longer and longer. So they extend that out because you are sucked in. You're like, if this thing lands, I'm about to win a bunch of money. And then it lands, but it's not the cherry. what ends up happening is that this leads people to repeat the behavior quicker, actually. And because near misses are mathematically more likely to happen than actual wins, it compels people to repeat the behavior.
You must now look at the world, having studied all of these things, and especially living in Vegas and seeing those gas stations and that have the roulette machines in them. Do you think that corporations and these businesses are like a little bit evil, a little bit morally bankrupt?
Well, this gets into this larger question. So what we have to realize is that a lot of these behaviors are fun and rewarding in the short term. So take, I don't know, TikTok feeding you the exact algorithm that's going to capture your attention. That is fun and rewarding. Okay. And so if you were to say, well, you need to stop doing that, then the response from TikTok would be, okay, so you're telling us to basically give people boring content that they don't want as much. Do we want to live in that world? I don't think so. Should slot machines be less fun? Should it be less fun to watch YouTube? Should Netflix design itself to be boring? What my message really is that I'm not saying don't ever do these things, but I think we need to realize that we oftentimes fall into these behaviors for reasons we're not entirely aware of. So if you want to spend 15 hours a day on TikTok, hell yeah, go for it. But I want you to make that decision consciously. And I think today, a lot of corporations know the decision is not being made consciously. That's the reality. But at the same time, I don't know if the antidote is going to leave us any better, because then we start regulating everything, and I don't think we want that. So really what I want to do is empower people to realize you have the capacity to make choice. I want you to be more aware of why you're doing what you're doing, because ultimately that is where freedom lies. Like if we start punishing corporations, it's like you're treating the public like children.
And I was going to say, the one ethical casino would just go bankrupt.
Right.
And it wouldn't exist. But I think about that throughout society. The one social platform that didn't play to our scarcity brain would not exist. It wouldn't have users. So it would become extinct. So, and then also, if you think about it on like a geographical, on a global scale, if we just banned it in the United States or the UK, a lot of the innovation and opportunity just moves off to China or to some other place where they capitalize on the scarcity brain.
Yeah.
So it's all about being conscious, intentional. And that starts with exactly what you've done in your book, really, which starts with awareness. If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously. And the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.